But now I would like to invite Tomasz Kaczmarczyk from SUPERHOT on how to sell 2 million indie games.
Hello, testing. Okay, this seems to be working fine. Hello, everybody. So I'm Tom, and my talk will be quite a bit different from what Falka was saying before. So not hyper-casual games, not mobile games, and it's going to be somewhat similar in that it's going to be about charts and numbers and also metrics, but at a level that you can achieve with premium PC and console indie games, which is starkly different than what you have with mobiles, which is pissing me off. It's my personal crusade to fix this a little bit. So before we start, there's this thing that I hate when I'm in the audience, but I kind of enjoy it when I'm on the stage. Can we do a little bit of conference yoga, a little bit of stretching? Can I have a show of hands of how many of you here are indie game developers or publishers, as in premium games that you sell on Steam or Switch? Just show of hands. Excellent, almost nobody. Brilliant. So this for you will be more of a, I suppose, an insight into the other side of the industry where people like myself end up developing and selling small productions for actual money and not big productions that you play on small phones for no money whatsoever. So to get started, I think I've got a clicker here. As I mentioned, my name's Tom. Now, to give you guys a little bit of a backstory, some context of what SUPERHOT is and what we're doing, and also where are we with respect to what I'm going to be talking about. So SUPERHOT looks like this. It's a game about kind of killing red people. There's this time moves only when you move mechanic. It came up on a game jam in 2013, so quite a few years ago. The game jam ended up with this browser playable thing, kind of like a Flash game. It was Unity web player back in the days, magnificent piece of technology. And then it looked like this. Kind of similar, but as you can imagine, a game jam game made in a week is a little bit less refined than what we have right now. The game picked up some viral interest, so it was played millions of times all around the world by people that were just interested in a short 10, 15-minute experience of something that was entirely new, and it was an actual new way of figuring out first-person shooters. This time moves only when you move mechanic. It was not something that has been done before, and it worked remarkably well. So we caught this lightning, we bottled it up, and we decided to kind of put this viral recognition and some initial community that we had into a self-publishing project. So we said no to all of the publishers that were reaching out to us, and we said we're just going to raise money on Kickstarter, basically win some money on the internet. So we did that. We got $250,000 on Kickstarter. It was not enough to finish the game, but we managed to somehow scrape together all of the remaining budget. Then the game came out. It was very good. People enjoyed it. Then we made a VR version of it, and it was even better, and people enjoyed it even more. And it's still, SUPERHOT VR is still one of the top 3, top 5 best-selling VR games in the world, which is very exciting and cool for us. Primarily because VR is growing. So even though we haven't actually shipped any new games since 2016, we still keep growing our revenue year over year. And now we're a proper studio. So we've got 40 people working on different projects, maintaining the existing games or building new stuff. We've got quite a lot of awards just sitting around the office and making us proud. And then we have somewhere between 2 and 8 million copies of the game sold. The big gap, like 2 and 8 million, that's quite a big difference, is because in indie game distribution, you can also sign big giveaway deals like Games with Gold or Humble Bundle, Humble Monthly, etc., which some people tend to factor into their sales. I probably wouldn't. That's not an actual sale if a customer doesn't pay for the game. So there's like 2 million people that actually paid for the game, 8 million people that own it legally, and we still have no external attachments. We don't have investors, we don't have publishers, it's just ourselves. So that's the backstory. This is where we are right now. The actual meat of the talk is when you're doing in the indie premium business development. So like myself, how do you know if you're doing a good job? When you're looking at mobile games and when you're looking at premium games, you've got loads of metrics, you've got loads of analytics and data that you can look at, and you can kind of compare yourself against a lot of different benchmarks. In indie games, you don't really have that. So the thing that we'll be talking about right now is not going to be the initial part of your sales. It's going to be what you do as an indie game developer, as an indie game business developer, after you've actually shipped your game and you're trying to grow it and trying to maintain and trying to maximize its potential, give it to as many players as possible and make the most money that you can. And primarily the reason why I won't be talking about how do you ship a game successfully, how do you make sure that you have a good game to distribute, that's because those 2.5 million people that played our Game Jam prototype in the first place, that was kind of the most important factor for our initial success and our initial traction. And I have absolutely no idea why it happened. I have no idea how to tell you how to make a game that will be a viral success, that will become a meme or a pop cultural phenomenon. So this will, not be about the art of making games, game design. It's not going to be about launching or publishing your games. It's going to be about growing games that are already out there on the market. Something that you kind of have as live ops in mobiles. You don't really have a term for this in indie game publishing and development. It's something that people just kind of overlook. So in terms of what people do when they're faced with the challenge of running a business development operation for an indie studio, the kind of the most important thing that you should have in mind is what is your target audience, and this is kind of a useful model to have. If you've got a game, you should be aware if your game is a niche game or if it's a big game. This is like this Easter egg thing where your job will generally be to look at your current player base, have a vague idea of what your total player base could be. So what is the maximum potential of your game? Is there 30 million people in the world that would be willing to play your game if you somehow manage to reach them and get them to spend their time on it? Or is it 1 million people? Or is it 500,000? Because that might be vastly different strategies at this point. So your job is just trying to maximize this blue Easter egg here as much as you can, but keeping in mind that there's always going to be a limit. There's always going to be a ceiling for what you're doing. So in terms of like SUPERHOT VR, because VR as a market is small, there's a limited number of headsets in the world. SUPERHOT VR being a very, very popular title in a small market, we are always kind of close to, well, not saturation levels, but potential saturation levels, like something where we will be running out of people to give our game to. And that significantly impacts what you can do with it. Whereas with SUPERHOT, the regular game, because it is a regular game for PCs and consoles, there's hundreds of millions of people that have those devices. There's probably about 30, 40 million people that could potentially want to play a puzzle shooter. So the actual ceiling is far, far away from us. So that means that for SUPERHOT, for example, if we're running big giveaways, if we're trying to give away our game to 6 million people, that's probably not going to eat into our overall market all that much, because there's still so many other people that will be willing to potentially purchase and play the game. So that's a model you can keep in mind. It's going to be useful in the later stage of the presentation. Now, the way that people usually do business development in indie games, and this is the thing that was kind of driving me insane, is that the model for running business development is basically this for indie games. You just do things. You just go and you sign a deal, you do some marketing, you run a promotion on Steam, and you see some numbers going up, and you say, yeah, it's great. I've done my job. But there is probably a problem that you see with this model, that it's not a very good model. It's no matter what you do when you're trying to make decisions as a studio head, business developer, whoever you call yourself, running the operations and publishing for your studio, whatever you do, you're probably going to have a positive impact on your sales. Because for as long as you get your game in front of people, they buy it, you're going to make a profit. Games don't cost nothing to distribute. So you're always going to see numbers going up. But you're never going to see how much money you're losing by just not doing other things that might be more profitable, or by setting up your discounts in the wrong way, or by not tapping into some revenue channels like China or Russia, or having bad pricing. So you're just never going to see it. So at the best, what you have is you've got some experience, some intuitions. You've just been in the industry for a while, and you have a better sense than the average person of what does it take to hustle successfully. But what I would like to see in the upcoming future is to also be able to kind of collect everything that you're doing, have this in a nice, accessible format, I guess, and then for you to be able to feed all of that back into your decision-making process. And that's something that is already nearly impossible for a small studio. Even some publishers around the planet that seem to be doing a good job aren't really doing that all that much. Simply because for a mobile game, you've got your Apple iTunes, you've got your Play Store. You collect information from those two platforms, and you're done. You've got beautiful conversion funnels. You've got all the numbers in the world. And you can become smarter based on just analyzing your games there. And there's just so many things that mobile games have already figured out that we in the indie and premium game space haven't yet. If you have a premium indie game, you have probably like 16 to 20 something different sales channels. There's like PlayStation, Xbox, Steam, Epic Game Store, Switch. There's a bunch of others that you should be measuring. They give you vague information. Sometimes you don't even have live access to your sales. You just see them on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis. So you have no way of measuring what your hustle is doing in the like at live. And then you also don't really have insight into the secondary signals. So things like visibility, marketing, social buzzes. So it's very easy to miss things that are actually very, very important for your game. And that's just the reality that you live in. So that was driving me insane. What you can do, some obvious things that you can come up with, and it's very nice if you can actually measure them, is things like localization, like actually going to China. So we SUPERHOT localized into Chinese here. If you look at the chart of all of our sales across the world, doesn't really matter much because it's still going to be an incremental few percent. But if you're looking at the Chinese sales, it did actually increase significantly just because Chinese people like to play games in Chinese. And this effectively, for us, meant that it's like an extra $100,000 over the course of a few months, which is great for a small indie studio. It is a significant amount of money that cost us just sending a couple of emails to Steam and then getting the localization in place, which probably amounted like $3,000 or something. Was quite a good effort for us. Even more so, adjusting your pricing strategy. It's nice to kind of spend some time, figure out if what you're selling your game for is actually the correct price for the region. So we are based in Poland, and when Steam introduced Polish currencies, we kind of jumped on it and changed the price of SUPERHOT to something that we would like to spend on games. And that meant that we actually cut the price by 2/3. At the same time, this effectively meant that the revenue increased significantly because people were just spending, were just more likely to buy SUPERHOT instead of pirating it, and we got like extra $60,000 from this, which was very nice. Was also probably a total of 15 minutes to effect this change. Then if you're measuring things, if you go in and you start measuring things and tracking what you're doing, you run into those issues or those things where you've got big giveaways or big giveaway opportunities. And if you have somebody showing up telling you, hey, we're going to give you $300,000, but you need to give us 1 million keys for your game, and we're going to give it away to people all around the world in our subscription service or whatnot. Usually, the first time any developer hears about this, they are kind of fancy. They're kind of cagey because there's a million people that you give away the game for free to. It amounts to like 30 cents per game. Doesn't feel like a good deal. I've heard so many developers that just declined all of those big giveaways because they felt they would be devaluing their game. Now, what you actually have is that, well, this is kind of what usually the redemption of those keys look like. So there's a big spike in redemption of keys that you gave away in this giveaway, and then it kind of fizzles out when the giveaway ends. You would expect that at least what you would see is that it suppresses your regular sales, your regular revenue, because why would you ever buy a game for full price on Steam if there's a giveaway going on where you can get it for free? Well, it turns out that it really doesn't. Nobody can really tell when you're just looking at your regular revenue charts when is a big giveaway happening, because there's just so many people on the planet, and the people that know about this giveaway are such a small fraction of your total potential market. So most people that find themselves on your Steam page, they don't know that there's a giveaway. They don't care. They will just buy it or not just as much as they would during a regular day. And this kind of holds up with this mental model that you can hold in your head, that you have this tendency, a fallacy, where you expect that your customers will be kind of like you, that they will know everything about the game because you know everything about the game. You know when it's on sale, you know what the prices are in different regions, you know when there's a big giveaway or a bundle coming up. But the reality is that your customers are more like goldfish. So, I mean, they're excellent. We love our customers. That's why we have a studio and we're making games. But they don't have the attention, they don't have the knowledge about your game that you do. So you can probably fairly accurately model a customer as just this one single interaction where they go to your page, they find themselves on your page some way, and they make an instant decision if they're buying your game or not. They're not going to shop around, they're not going to look for better offers, they're just going to decide on the spot if they're clicking this buy button or if they aren't. It just holds for majority of the customers. The effect is that even if you're running extremely large bundles, so the previous one was like 30,000 keys given away, this is 150,000 keys, the same thing holds up, you can't see the difference. And even when you're running super huge giveaways. So this is one of the giveaways that we made that had like millions of keys, millions of people redeeming the game over a short period of time. The chart that you see here right now, there's like a couple of pixels around the red line that are regular unit sales. And then the blue spike is the giveaway. So it's orders of magnitude more than we ever sold on this platform. And when you look at the revenue chart, it doesn't really change much. If you analyze this, if you want to attribute all of the sales decay to just the sales event, it's maybe 6-7%, which, to be honest, if you trade away 6% for millions of people that you get in your community that you can talk to, feels like a pretty good deal. Now, in indie games and those bundles, there's also a thing called kind of the aftermarket sales or key resellers like G2A and Kingwin. People are have very strong opinions of those key resellers, and it's probably warranted. They do shady stuff, and it doesn't feel like they're doing a good job of making sure that their business is actually up to snuff. But at the same time, if you're a publisher or a developer and you're spending your effort on fighting key resellers, you're probably not spending it in the right place. This is a chart of 1 year of our kind of new player activations for the regular SUPERHOT. So there's like 1.5 million new players, and during that time we actually only sold about 200,000 copies of the game on Steam, and then we have some insight into how many keys were sold for those key reseller services, about 20,000. So the discrepancy between the new players and the sales isn't about key resellers, it's just plain old piracy. It's very easy to get your game off of Torrent Bay, and you don't need to go to G2A or Kinguin to buy games. You just get it off torrents if you want to. So if you're fighting key wrestlers instead of piracy, you're fighting the 1% problem, not the 100% problem. And this still holds with the the idea here. Your customers are very, very easily distracted, and if they go to your Steam page, they will make the decision if they want to buy or not. They will not then usually follow up with this very, very complicated and problematic process of, oh, I need to go and check if there's a better price for this on G2A and Kinguin, and then maybe buy a key there. If they want to do this, they are a lot more likely to just go to torrents and just buy your game of torrents for free. Now, another kind of finding if you're tracking things for indie games is that, first of all, getting access to information about the sales funnel for your game is bullshit. It's just not there. You can try to kind of align your Google Analytics with your sales on Steam and have this coarse conversion rate, but you can't actually track people through the entire purchasing process. But the one thing that kind of comes up when you do this coarse conversion rate is that the conversion rates are kind of the same all the time. So it's always, for us at least, for one of our games, it's about 60-70 cents per a pair of eyeballs that reaches our page on Steam. And what this effectively means, or what you can kind of take from this, is that visibility is the most important factor that you can influence. You can't really influence your conversion rates all that much. You can't make your website on Steam a lot more attractive to customers, but you can get more customers to come to your website on Steam. So this is kind of the visibility, or like the number of users we've had on our Steam page, and those big spikes are just when there's sales or some negotiated spotlights that you can get from Steam. And as far as I know, in mobile games, it's more difficult to get those spotlights because there's a lot more curation in terms of how you get access to people that decide what to put on the front page. On Steam, for as long as you've got a very, very good game, it is a matter of reaching out to the correct people, the decision makers, getting coffees, getting beers with them, making friends, making sure that you have this trust built in, and then every now and then, when they have a slot available, they are more likely to think of your game than other people's games, and this might amount to hundreds of thousands of dollars that you get for your studio. What you also kind of trade is you give them very, very deep discounts. So you give them deals that are very, very attractive for their customers, and in return they give you those premium spots. You sell a lot of games for cheap, but you get a lot more eyeballs when you're on the front page. And this is something that you have to be kind of careful about when you're running games that are niche, because if you have the game like SUPERHOT, the non-VR version, the sky's the limit in terms of how many people we can convert. There's tens of millions of people that would be willing to play our game and possibly willing to pay for it, whereas in VR, there's only a couple million, there's only a few million that we haven't tapped into just yet. So discounting SUPERHOT VR heavily might oversaturate our market, and we might never be able to sell a copy again, approximately. So with SUPERHOT, you want to, with a game like SUPERHOT, something which is a little bit more mainstream, it's got a big niche, you want to make sure that you're giving those deals and you're getting the most visibility, because it really only matters how many eyeballs you can get on your store page, and then the difference is very, very stark. You can see that just getting a little bit better of a deal, something that just presents better, that Steam in this case can use as a nice marketing vehicle. They will be able to funnel a little more traffic, a little more people into your page, and you can make a lot more money. Whereas if you're looking at a game that is niche, that is already up there in bestsellers most of the time, that people already know about, it doesn't really work that way. So your sales are going to be much less of a spike. They will be incrementally better, but they're not going to be 10, 20 times more revenue than your regular sales. And the increase in your discounting level will be will not be as effective. So when you've got a niche game that is already recognizable and is kind of unique, people kind of have to get it if they want this experience. Then you probably want to stick to a lower discounting level, and there's really a lot less reason to be fighting for extra visibility. So that was kind of just a big dump of what we're doing, what we're thinking about, and how we're measuring it or tracking it. And the big question that you kind of have to ask yourself at the end of the day when you're doing all of those things and tracking all of those things is, if you as a business developer, as the guy that's trying to make sure that the existing games of your studio, the games that the creative guys come up with, are the most effective, are properly managed, and if you're doing a good job. And you can try and just kind of have a broad stroke overview of everything that you're doing and see, oh, the studio's growing revenue year over year, so we're probably fine, we're probably doing a good job. Or you can have a look at all of your different regions, and you can find those markets that you can try to influence and see that, well, it's actually increased your sales in those markets very, very heavily, so you've earned a bonus like $400,000 for a good game. The reality is that it's not really a definitive answer. Just that your company is growing is not a definitive answer for the question of if you're doing the best job possible or not. You are probably doing a good job if your revenue and sales are growing, and if you feel like you've done good things to very specific laser-focused markets, but it's still impossible to be able to tell if you're doing the best job possible because you have no reference points in business development for indie games. So my kind of pet project, personal crusade that I've started last year is about fixing this, about providing additional information and tools for people. Because you can't, looking at this, you can't really tell if the conversion rates that you have on Steam are good or not. You can't easily figure out if the fact that Xbox in Germany is underperforming, is that true for everybody because Xbox just doesn't work in Germany well, or is it just for us because we're doing something wrong on Xbox? You can't say if your Korean refund rate of 25% is fine or not, because maybe Koreans just refund games a lot. Maybe that's just how they are. So in this model, what I want to introduce, apart from also just this data collection and feedback thing, is to be able to get a lot of other clever industry people and to be able to talk to each other and to provide benchmarks and to provide best practices that are actually based on credible data and statistics and analytics, so things that you can actually believe in. Because right now, if you want to look for industry benchmarks, if you want to look for reference points, best you can find is like this odd blog post from 2013 from one developer talking about their experience with China, or some random Twitter thread with advice about how you deal with Steam. But you can't really find articles, white papers, case studies of things that have worked and haven't. So my thing is, it's called IndieBI. So all of the charts and different things that you've seen here, they've been generated by a suite of business intelligence tools that we've been creating on the side for SUPERHOT, and then also introducing it as sort of a beta preview program to some of our friends and kind of relevant developers and publishers. The reasoning behind it is with those 20 plus different sales channels that you want to support. Usually, if you want to have charts like the ones that you've seen in this presentation, you have to have multiple people just downloading them every day and then collating them into spreadsheets and then generating a report for you. Instead, there's just a website where you can drag and drop things and put them into one single place, which parses them and crunches them and gives you a consistent data structure. Or you can have this like set of robots, tools that you just run an app and it downloads all of those different spreadsheets and collects them and then uploads them into our processing service automatically. Then at the end of the process, you get yourself a database. You can just kind of plug into it with whatever tools you want and do your own analytics, or you can get this set of this set of dashboards that we made for SUPERHOT and are consistently improving, and you can just click around and do things yourself that you weren't able to do before. So you can finally just analyze your data in a way that is approachable to even small 2-3-person teams, and find out how you're doing in particular regions, how you're doing in particular platforms, and then eventually with all of this data, hopefully we'll be able to also give you not just the totality of your sales on one single chart and one single place, but also plug in all of the different marketing signals, visibility signals, and come up with automatic advice. So some kind of a robo-publisher, you would call it, where you get a Clippy showing up in your on your desktop every now and then, telling you that there's a Steam sale coming up and there's those recommended discounting levels for your games, because we know everything we need to know about your game to give you good advice, and you can just click it and it just works. And this is an actual thing. It's still in preview stages, so it's an invite-only kind of a thing, hopefully going to be rolling out sometime next year, with the expectation it's going to be free for all of the small indie developers, and then the bigger successful companies like ourselves will subsidize it to make it run and to make it independent with a team of analysts that will be helping everybody in the industry. So you can sign up now if it's at all relevant to you. If you are one of the 2 people in the audience that are working on non-mobile games, then go ahead and sign up, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Guys, yeah, let's. In the interest of efficiency and keeping the timing, I suggest you track him down in the hallway or here to discuss more about SUPERHOT in the BI.